Well, hello, hello. Welcome to the Writers Tribe Talk Show. I'm your host, Elsa Kerr, and today I have William Podluka. He is a certified benefits professional and a health insurance advocate with over 30 years experience. I'm super excited because I have 0 years of experience in this topic. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Elsa.
Absolutely. All right. So a certified benefits professional. I'm so glad I was able to say that without looking down at my notes again. Tell me a little bit about your background and what exactly you do.
So I, as a benefits professional, that means I professionally work for an employer or a group, if you will, helping to manage benefits, corporate benefits. That's been my background. And prior to that, I've had a number of years working within the insurance industry, so different pockets of the industry. So I feel like I have a good, broad understanding of how the health insurance works, how the health care system works, and also how do we deliver benefits to employees. And specifically, and the reason I wrote the book is that within the medical health insurance area, right, there's a lot of gaps and misunderstanding of how to use your health insurance. And so what I've found is, there's so many things you can do to help people, help employees at work. But the one thing I find that's the most impactful is if someone can figure out how to navigate the healthcare system and get their claims paid or get coverage, right, and they're out of pocket, that can actually lead to health outcomes. So it hasn't started from day one. I started as a mental health professional when I graduated college. So I started in that field. And then I progressed throughout my professional career to where I'm at now, where, there's only so many things I can do to help people. And I think this one area, health insurance literacy, and this is the reason why I wrote the book, is to help educate people so they can navigate the health insurance field.
I love that. So maximize your health insurance is the name of the book, correct? Am I missing a part of that title?
No, maximize.
Okay, perfect. So and I say it jokingly, but I mean it so seriously. I have so little understanding of just navigating and understanding coverage and what you need and what you don't need and how to get it. So, and I know that I'm not alone in that. So were you surprised at how many people are in the boat that I'm in that just have no clue?
On one level I am, another level I'm not. So where I am surprised is that because health insurance is so prolific, meaning most people, you still hear about people in the United States being uninsured, but it's a lot less than it used to be, number one. So you would think, more people have health insurance, they'll take advantage of it, but there's still a lot of roadblocks, and some of them are personal, some are just things out of your control that prevent you from taking advantage. So, for example, most people, well, I don't know about you, but I didn't learn in school, what a health insurance, they don't teach you about health insurance in school, right? So a lot of it's on the fly. And so, and that I'm not surprised about until you're forced to figure it out, till you go to the doctor and you've got hospital or surgeries and you get all these bills coming in the mail and you're like, what in the world am I doing? And the people are like, I don't want to go to get collections, like all these problems that could happen, right? So people end up paying bills and they don't really know, like, am I paying the right things? Am I paying too much? Do I have the right health insurance plan for my needs? Like, there's a lot of unknowns and it's hard to even get expert advice or to figure it out. Now, I will say there's some people who are better than others at figuring it out, but usually that's because they're motivated because they don't have the money or whatever. Sure. Most people, and I read where over 88% of US adults, if you were to ask them, can you calculate your share of health insurance after a claim gets paid? 88% of people cannot do that successfully. So if you get a bill in the mail from a doctor or a healthcare provider, how do you know what you're paying is accurate?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, great question, and one we should all be asking when we get those bills, because life happens, obviously, and we're actually in the situation where my daughter, technically adult daughter, she's in the situation right now. She broke her ankle recently, and
oh,
this is the first, yeah, and she needed surgery and the whole works, and and unfortunately, I wasn't much help because I don't understand all of that either. And of course, she is an adult, so it's her health insurance, her business, kind of.
right,
I'm still
right.
mommy, so I'm still in her business a little bit.
Good for
Always
you.
mommy, yeah. And so I brought her to the initial appointment, and we get there, and it turned out they did not accept her insurance plan. So she had to scramble and find, call her insurance company. And this was all, I somehow managed to get my children through respectively 29 and 24 years without any major injuries, no broken bones, no nothing. That used to be a brag, but now I realize, no, it probably would have been better if we had this experience in the pocket, so we knew how to deal with it. But here we
Right.
are, and it was a little overwhelming and confusing. And thankfully, we called the number on the back of the card and got in. See, I don't even know the terminology in the
So,
plan.
right, in network. So, one of the things you just hit the nail on the head on is the United States healthcare system is a private, generally speaking, private, meaning healthcare providers, hospitals. Granted, a lot of them are not for profit, but a lot of them are still trying to make money. And the system is more of a profit-driven system. So we, as individuals, it's not a social system. And I don't want to talk about social insurance. It's a whole different discussion. But our system is, how do you navigate to make sure that you're protecting your interests? And so, in an emergency, they're taking in the emergency room, and you don't have the choice in the ambulance to say, "Oh, take me to the hospital down the road because that's in my network." There are things that cover you for that, but all the other stuff that's either elective or you can plan in advance. If you go to your doctor and they ask you, "Well, I need you to get an X-ray or whatever, a CAT scan," you just follow them. Where should I go? They go here. Well, is that really the best place? Can you shop around a little bit? And maybe you can save yourself some money. Believe it or not, drive another 5 miles out of your way if you can't. Like, there are things like that people can do to help manage their. That's what I mean by maximizing. There are some basic skill sets that you can just easily acquire to do that.
And safe assumption that your book literally walks the reader through these steps and how to navigate this,
Yeah.
to us, to the average person, incredibly confusing system. You mentioned, when those bills come in, and it is almost, I won't say impossible, but it's challenging to read and understand, because you get this bill and it's got all these numbers and things, and says, but at the top it says, this is not a bill. So, and then you're like, well, but is it going to be a bill? What am I paying here? And it's all very confusing. So do you help explain that type of stuff in your book?
If yes, I do, and it's the same kind of knowledge transfer as if you were an employee at my company, right? Or you're a relative and you're at my family, the kitchen table, and you're asking me, this is what happened. I would just tell you, like, this is, how you, there again, people often learn from experience and doing it themselves, but sometimes having it laid out. So I do talk about how do you go about even selecting a plan? Like, how do you compare? What are the things that you should think about when you're going to pick a plan? Or if you have problems after the fact, how do you know whether that past due notice or the bill that comes in the mail, how can you figure out if it's accurate or not? Mm-hmm. So there are things, it's just very basic skill sets. And then there's other stuff, once you get into it, you can build on. So there's foundational things beyond just knowing what terms mean, definitions of things. That's all. It's another language, and so how do you figure out what that language is? So yes.
That's fantastic. Now, one of the things that the first thing that comes up when you're picking out an insurance plan is high deductible, low deductible. And I have to confess my ignorance here. What's the best one to pick? Is that dependent on your age group, or help? Help.
Well, a lot of times, if you have the choice, not everybody has a choice. So
Right.
you take whatever you have available to you. But oftentimes, whether through your employer, you're often offered a few choices, at least two or three. But statistics, believe it or not, there are people out there in the academic world that have done studies, and the more options that you have, the more complicated it gets, and the less your ability to pick the right plan. So, even if you have one choice or several choices versus 20, it could be just as daunting. So a lot of it comes down to, let's start with it being a financial conversation. How much can you afford? And comparing the plans based upon the premiums. That's usually step one. And then step two is, okay, what do the plans cover? Are they comparable in terms of the out-of-pocket costs? So it really should be initially a financial conversation. Beyond that, then you can start looking at the features, like, I travel around the country a lot. Will it cover me if I go to California, or not? So what kind of pharmaceutical, like, I take this prescription, do they cover that drug, or does it have to be all generics? Like, there's all these things that come up so you really have to understand, what are my needs, number one. And that's hard too. Like, I don't know, I'm not planning to have an accident next month, but it is taking inventory of what you think your needs are going to be, and then using those to drive your decision process.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you see in your profession as being, is there a common mistake that the average insurance seeker makes when they're picking out their insurance?
So, that's a great question. I'll answer from the lens of an employee first. If you're working for a company and you're offered a plan, oftentimes people just look at the payroll contribution, and they'll say, well, my plans, I want the cheapest plan. Okay. But then you look at the plan you have, and you end up realizing you've got your deductible is really high. Like, is that what you want? Versus there are people who just look only at, oh, my copay is $10. I love that. Well, that sounds great, but how much are you paying in your payroll contribution? And you add it up, you may have paid more because of payroll. So there's different things that people are not, I think, number one, that's like the basic. Looking at, because it's like sticker press, like the shiny object,
Yeah, absolutely. And people want to pay as little as possible out of pocket, on a regular basis. So, they take that gamble and that risk, maybe not even realizing that they're taking a gamble and a risk on their health, and in those unforeseen circumstances and things that can happen, like my daughter's broken ankle. She definitely, like you said, was not planning on that, was not anticipating that. And, and here it is. And now, there's all of the things that go with that. Do people often fail to, so what is the relationship between the customer and the health insurance companies? If I were to call, let's say if I were to call my health insurance company and say, listen, I don't understand anything that you're saying. How are they with working with you and understanding, getting you to understand? Or are they just like, here's the paperwork, go read it?
So I'm going to say, from my experience, there's a spectrum, right? And I think that some insurance companies, I think customer service over the years has become sort of a differentiator for them. So they need to get better. But again, a lot of it is based upon it's how personal can they get with you in terms of understanding what your needs are. Because oftentimes we call up customer service. I do this with my bank. You have a very specific question. They'll give you a very specific answer. But in the big picture, what you're really saying, you're calling up the insurance company saying, how come my prescription is not covered? They'll give you the basic answer, but there's a bigger picture behind the scenes about, well, the doctor prescribed a certain thing. I had this conversation with my pharmacist. I've got these medical conditions. Like, there's all these factors going on. And I think where maybe some do it better than others, but it's really, how do you understand the person more holistically, what's going on? And they don't may have the motivation or the efficiency to spend a lot of time with you on the phone. So
sure.
I think there's a balance that they try to strike to, let's get them the right answer. Let's try to help them along. But at the same token, we are still required, like, you have to know what questions to ask.
Sure. Yeah, I guess so. A health insurance agent can't really tell you what the best health insurance is for you. You have to investigate that on your own, essentially. Is that accurate?
So when it comes to picking plans, they should be able to provide, usually they provide really good information, whether it's a chart or something interactive, or if they're on the phone, they'll ask you all these good questions, and they'll take the time to explain things to you. Mm-hmm. But you're right. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to you to say what plan's right for me. So you do need to factor in things like, what has been my experience like with the kind of plan that works for me. Some people like those HMOs, and you're in network all the time. You pay the a lot of it's your experience. So you have to figure out, again, it goes back to what your needs are. And sometimes the person on the phone, they may not elicit those needs. So it kind of leads to, so I wanted to point something out. You asked me before about what's the one thing that common problem. I think, the other thing that happens because of the kind of healthcare system we have, and that it's profit driven, a lot of people trust the doctor's office, or they trust the healthcare provider. When you walk in the office and they go, give me your insurance card, and we're so programmed, and then they say, great, thanks, you're here, give me this money, and people are like, here you go. So I think there's this blind trust that they're really taking. Generally, yeah, they're the doctor's responsibility is to treat you, right? Mm-hmm. Do no harm, but treat me. But when it comes to the money part, that part gets a little fuzzy. And I don't think they always have your best interest at heart. So you really have to be an active consumer and being aware. And it's really hard to balance that when you're sick, you got the flu, you don't feel good. So it's not conducive, really. So if you can get this stuff, these skill sets down in advance, be prepared, it makes it a little bit easier to protect your interests. So anyway,
that's such a great point. And you're so right. When you're in the middle of either an illness, an unexpected illness or an unexpected injury, all you can focus on is, feeling better and getting better. And like you said, that trust, that expectation that the person that you're going to, the doctor, is going to do the things to take care of you. And that trust can be a little bit blind. And I've never, growing up, I never remember hearing anyone talk about being your own healthcare advocate as much as I hear about it now. And now it's kind of like an automatic thing that, you have to be your own advocate and search for these things. But again, going back to, kind of where we started from, most of us don't even know where to begin. We don't know the terminology. We don't know what's the right plan for us, all of these things. So, and I think that's why a book like yours is so critically important to help in that understanding and make it so that we can advocate for ourselves in a smart way. So I'd like to, if you don't mind, like to ask you a little bit of the process of writing this book. Like I'd like to kind of go back and what
Sure.
was it that made you say, you know what, people need this information, and maybe that's exactly what it is. Did you just decide people need this information? I got to write it for them.
Well, if I was born in the 1800s, I'd probably be standing in a box on the middle of the corner shouting out the town crier, and then about this. But then again, they didn't have health insurance then. Anyway, my motivation to write the book was, long story short, I was interested in writing fiction at some point. I thought I had a story in my head. And then that kind of didn't go where I wanted to go, but I still had interest in writing. And I was like, self-publishing seemed like something, down the road, I would love to try to do this on the side as a hobby. But I remember reading it for someone like yourself, say, well, write about what you know, just to get started. So what did I know? I know about health insurance literacy. So I said, this is an easy topic. And in about a weekend, I had the draft almost done, like the outline of a lot of things. I still had work to do, but I said, wow, this is something that I felt passionate. And then that passion turned into the book. And it took me probably a good year before to actually get to the point where I was comfortable to self-publish it through the Amazon, right? That's what a lot of us do. So it was more of that. And then when you write a book, then what do you have to do?
Got to promote it. Yes. Oh, fun.
Oh boy. So I was like, oh, do I want to do that? So I've been more of on a journey. So the writing part has been great. And I've had several editions of the book where I've improved on it and gotten feedback from people. And and then added a couple sections here and there. So I think that'll always evolve. And so it was more of a process of that, getting the experience to write and publish. And I said, I don't care. Now I do care. Before I was like, well, if I sell copies, I don't, I think it's more, now I care. Now I care about getting the word out. Now I feel like I see places where I can promote. And I think, like colleges or great universities, getting people before they hit the job market.
Yes.
I'm seeing certain pockets where, there's a need. Now, I'm not trying to replace people who work for employers, or I'm not trying to replace there's the open market, the marketing. I'm not trying to replace what they do. They do some great stuff, but a lot of people don't feel like they have resources. And so it's just a compliment, what's out there.
That's a great compliment to what's out there. I think it probably simplifies things and answers those questions that, maybe we're like too embarrassed to ask because we feel like we're supposed to know. I fall into that category. I tend to not ask questions because I'm afraid that it's stuff that I'm supposed to know and everybody else knows, but I'm the only one that doesn't. So a book like yours is really great for someone like me. Like, I don't want to ask anybody because I'll feel stupid, but let me read this book.
Well, if you have to, you can always email me. I won't think you.
Perfect. Yeah. I'm probably going to take you up that. I'm like using and abusing you here because I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to Bill about our retirement plans, because that's a big issue. Kidding aside, for our family, that is a huge determining factor. When my husband retires, his health insurance does not carry over. He's law enforcement. And so we'll be having to seek, health insurance, and our age bracket, and some, pre-existing health concerns that are going to be ongoing. Those are all factors that, are we going to be paying like obscene amounts of money, and how can we best, by the way, obviously your book is on order and it's going to be here, I think in 2 days. I got Amazon Prime. Yours is going to be here in 2 days, I think. So just so you know. But yeah,
Thank you.
These are huge, important issues in our life. And I know we're not alone in that. Lots of people are looking at those same things.
Yeah, there are moments, when you're preparing to retire, and if you're Medicare age, there's a lot of questions that come up about that. Mm-hmm. Or there are people who are self-employed and they don't have the options to buy, get insurance through their employer, so they're on the open market, or there could be an exchange in their state. Or maybe they were offered COBRA because they left their company, and what does that mean? So it can be undaunting because there's not always one person or something that you can trust. So you feel like you have to kind of figure it all out to get this one. I was on the phone one time with a person. We called Medicare. They asked questions, and then we called back another time. We got different answers. Now, I don't know what that was about, and it just felt like in my gut that there isn't consistency.
Right.
And we can talk about whether we should have one healthcare system or Medicare for all. There's a lot of different things on the table that certainly have merit, and we're much different than other countries because they have a longer history of how they evolved to where they are. So it's really hard to compare the United States to other countries. But the one thing I will say is that it seems like we're not, we're not really having a discussion about how to make it easier for people to get healthcare, because it is a gateway to health. And that's really so the conversation. I not to get on a soapbox, but I really feel like the bigger issue that we should be having in our country, at least in the United States, is about health. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? And how do we get people to be healthy? Because that actually has impact on cost. So our health care in premiums could actually be lower if everybody was healthy. Now that's not realistic, but could we get people to be more healthy? Yes, we could. So so there could be an effort, but there isn't that kind of motivation out there. At least I don't see it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I see that as well. And I have seen, when I do pay attention to the things that I should be paying attention to, I do see that there are incentives now. I see health insurance companies are offering incentives if you're living a certain lifestyle. And I don't know if that's new or not. I just happen to newly see that. Do you see that as being more of a trend, or more of an attraction to people? Or like you said, we're not the most health conscious minded, actively, society, unfortunately.
No, so yeah, it's we're fighting a tough battle mainly because of human behavior. We're not wired like that, So people driving down the highway, they're hungry. What do? They pull off and they go to McDonald's. I'm not saying but so our bodies are wired to oh no, let's go get the bowl of rice and beans and salad or something, and that because that takes longer. So I think we're just not wired as people in a society toward that. But to your point, those incentives have been around for a while, and they have some effect, but the effect wears off. And so earlier in my professional career, at another company, we did that, and it worked for a while. And we had a lot of incentives, mainly because we wanted people to do the right things. We want them to get a health coach. We want them to get their annual physical. We want them to go exercise. So we built all these mechanisms, if you will, in a system, and people got rewarded. But over time, it doesn't always get the same effect. Like maybe you get 25% participation rate. That's significant. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. And you can make a difference, and you can get someone to stop smoking or to eat better. So you can impact people. There's also this equation about, we're spending a lot of time and effort to do that. And by the way, there are a lot of laws now that manage how that gets done. So a lot of companies have backed off, employers at least have, in terms of incentives. Insurance companies may say, well, here's some incentives and they can do some things. I think that's more of a marketing, maybe enticement to kind of redirect people. But in the big picture, a lot of those, in my experience, those incentive programs are not long standings. There really needs to change behavior if you're going to have any kind of impact.
Yeah, I agree with you. We focus on ill health care rather than preventing ill health, and that is definitely a societal issue that we clearly have. There's a quick fix for everything, and that quick fix is usually some type of medication or pill that has side effects that you have to take another pill to counter those, and then another and another, instead of making the best choices for our bodies and for our lifestyles. But yeah, that's probably a whole other conversation right there, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Tell me, so I want to bounce back a little bit. You also, of course, you have a website. What's the name of your website?
So maximize. You just maximize your health, maximizehealthinsurance.com. Excuse me.
That's okay.
You caught me off guard. It's kind of a version of the book. So maximizehealthinsurance.com. Perfect. I try to post articles, and I have some resources, and it's also a place to go and link out to the book. So it's a landing page, if you will, to get people excited. I try to update some things on Facebook. Trying to do more of that under William J. Pokluda. So not Bill Pokluda, because that's my personal Facebook. That's
Don't leave his personal Facebook alone. Go for the right one, people.
If I know you, I'll accept you as a friend, but if I don't,
Yes, I go through the same thing. I totally get it. Guys.
Can't have enough friends, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and I did visit your website, and that was why I wanted to bring it up too, because you actually do have a blog on there with those articles that you mentioned, and they're really, really great articles, really great information in them. And you did it so perfectly on there. You see a topic that like, oh, I need to know about this. I'm clicking on that one. You got a great article for it and everything, which is huge in importance and value. What came first, the book or the website and blog? Which one came first?
The book.
The book was first, and then the website all came in support. Yeah.
Well, that's when I started thinking about the marketing. And so, yeah, that part was, I think putting the website was probably more, I was a little more anxious about, mainly because it feels more real and so immediate, and that people would find you. So there was a period where I started it, and then when I didn't get rid of it, I wasn't as committed. A lot of it's time. And then I re-engaged, and so I made some effort to just, it's trying to be simple but effective. I didn't want to be too busy, but I think it's really more of a launching spot just to get people to, again, there's articles and things. But yeah, the website, I don't see it as that's right now. And you actually have a lot of great resources. So you're very active, very busy, and you have a lot of really good content. So you're like a good example of what you should be. So if I have more time,
I'll tell you what, everything is such a work in progress, and your journey is very similar in that regard to mine. I started off the same way. I was like, I'm same but different. I wanted to write a book. I wrote a book. I published the book. Amazon, same thing. Thought, okay, now I'm good. Now what? And you have to market. You have to promote. You have to tell people that you wrote a book. It just doesn't magically go out in the universe and everybody knows because it's on Amazon. And so navigating that whole process, so relatable. So just so you know, I started off saying that I would never do interviews. I would never do author events because I was too introverted, too shy, too introverted, both of those things. And you put them together and it's a, very uncomfortable, awkward mix. And I said I would never do those things. And then that turned into, well, I guess I need to do those things. I have to do those things. And then that turned into enjoying doing those things, which led to here we are now doing so maybe podcasting might be down in your future. You never know.
I'm learning as we speak.
It's actually, you would have a great niche if you did that, because I don't think, you can name like some, big names out there, I'm sure, but a very small handful. So you may have actually a really good target audience for an educational, helpful podcast or vlog or something. Just saying. Just throwing it out there.
Let me write that down. Hold on.
Yeah, write it down because, I feel like, I'm busy all the time. I'm doing 500 things at once typically. And I feel like everybody else must do the same. So I just throw things at people and tell them they should do that too. Okay. So Bill, tell everybody, maximize your health insurance. Tell everybody where they can find the book.
Yep. So maximize your health insurance. You can search Amazon and you can look up my name, William J. Pokluda, if that helps, or you can go to the website that I have as well. That's where you can find it.
Perfect. I love it. And they can find you on Facebook, but leave his personal profile alone. Go to William, not Bill.
Right. Well, William.
Yes, William. Go to William, not Bill.
Sorry.
Unless you want to know what Bill and his wife had for dinner last night, or what concert they went to see. None of your business, people. I'm kidding. Sort of, kind of not kidding, but kidding. But yeah, Bill, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. It was great.
Absolutely. We'll have you back on another time when you write that fiction book that you were talking about. That'll be the next appearance. No pressure. Pressure.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Have a great day.
All right, guys. This has been the Writer's Tribe Talk Show. That was Bill Podluka, and he is the author of Maximize Your Health Insurance. And if you are like me and don't know nearly enough about how to do that, and you want to save yourself some money, some time, and get some important information, that's the book that you need. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care. Hey, family, if you're looking for the perfect gift for the reader in your life, why not check out one of my books? They're all available on Amazon and most major online book retailers, as well as elsakurt.com.